Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the entree musician, and so are you. And I tell you what, we have an incredible conversation that's coming up. Here's someone that I know, love, and trust. We've been far more than acquaintances for more than 20 years. Now, I've wanted to have Joe on my platform for the longest time now. It's been all of this stuff, but now finally here it is, the incredible Joe Kelley, who's the musician's friend. He has a wonderful show on Mixcloud, and it's called Musicians Reveal, but you can also catch him on the Upper Room with Joe Kelley, and he is just the dude. Peace and blessings to you, Joe, man. Welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, thanks, brother. And wow, I gotta can that intro. That's a great. Thanks.
Well, I've got
So
more. I've got more. Here's something else I want to say right off the bat, man. And I mean this wholeheartedly. This is 2002. Okay. I'm just releasing my first project with Sound Doctrine. And you kind of have confidence enough to step out of your comfort zone and say, okay, now it's done. Now, what's the next step? I know we have to get it to media and doing all of this, but you don't really have enough confidence. You're just trying to figure it out. And I tell you what, man, the Upper Room with Joe Kelley, with you reaching out to me the way you did, with you having Sound Doctrine on your show, not just once or twice, but multiple times to keep in touch with us in our career, I'm telling you, man, you helped us to grow legs, and I am indebted to you. I mean that
yeah, that,
wholeheartedly.
that that really means a lot, Jared. Much love to you. And I tell you, as far back as we go, I was thinking Borders when you used to play the shows at Borders, I think it was,
Right.
and
Yeah.
the chai tea. I to this day,
Tight.
I know you love chai tea or did back then, but
That's right.
yeah, I mean the funk, jazz, and the musicianship, and especially the positive message that you
Yeah.
continue with Entree Musician and your records.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
not going anywhere from supporting you and your family, so musical
Well,
family. Yeah.
I tell you what, we appreciate it. I know that you've had Jim Kokenauer on, our
Yeah,
keyboard
great,
player at
great
the time,
keyboardist. Yeah.
man, and wonderful songwriter he is. And so, man, I'm telling you, you made us grow legs. And there was another gentleman. In fact, we were just talking about him before. He's passed on now, but we got to give big props to Bob Davis from Soul Patrol because again, early in the Sound Doctrine infancy, if we were not on one platform, we were on the other. So grateful, man.
Yeah, and I think the independent, radio and TV and everybody can do podcasts and go on YouTube and be seen and heard. The independent people now can somewhat compete against the 50,000-watt stations and
Yeah,
at least we're, in my opinion, we're playing better music and talking to
yeah.
playing what people should be hearing or at least checking out. So yeah,
But
Bob
you were
Davis
doing
was
that. Yeah,
yeah,
Bob
Bob
Davis
Davis.
was
I mean, he was right
king,
there.
man.
Yeah. Hmm.
Absolutely. But what I
Yeah.
was going to say is you were doing this before. I think this was in the era of MySpace. If anybody can remember MySpace, the
Yeah, I
internet
remember.
did not blow up to the point that it had. But you were on WVOF. And tell me that story. I don't quite know how that history began with you just having this way of having all of these wonderful musicians who I was a fan of each one and how you were able to attract them and be so magnetic and have such wonderful conversations. When did that begin?
I got into radio in 1982 was when I
Mm.
started right out of high school, and I think my first interview was 1983 with Andre
Mm.
Cymone.
That was
And
your first? Is that
first
what you
interview
said?
was Andre Cymone. Yeah, I was working for WNAB in Bridgeport, Connecticut. It was a
Wow.
commercial station, and of course, you can see behind me, I'm a huge Prince Minneapolis fan. And
Absolutely.
Andre had a solo career and still does. But
Yeah.
we were, he was going on tour for his second album. He was playing New York, and I contacted, everything's legwork on my own. Hey, just take a chance. And usually I'm thinking they're not going to respond. They don't need me. But I contacted his manager, Owen Husney,
Mm.
And he called me at my mom's house where I was living back then. I was only 18 or 19 years old. And he goes, "Can you do the interview?" I was like, "I can be at the studio in an hour." And I got to the studio, we did the interview. And 30 years later, I've had Andre on the show several times since. But
Absolutely.
as far as you getting up to, you mentioned the interviews, and, I'd say the early 90s,
Hmm.
probably 1991 or 1990, is when I said, I'm going to have a lot of these guests on the show. And I just contacted people randomly or their management. And they, I found, I mean, we've had Rock and Roll Hall of Famers on the show, legendary musician. They need a space to talk and have their music played. So most musicians have been very open to coming on. There are a few who haven't, and I've got some funny stories with that. But yeah, uh, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just, yeah, I made it a point to say, and I kept an open mind on some genres of music. And my wife G helped me stay open to different forms of music. And I met some incredible musicians, and
Hmm.
it's a two-way street. We're helping each other out.
That's amazing. So, at what year did you come to WVOF and it became the Upper Room? And I have a
Okay,
question about
yeah,
that too, because
yeah,
in the Upper Room, when I first heard of that, the first person I thought
yeah,
of was Mahalia Jackson. So, I want to
yeah.
know,
Well, it is
how'd you get the
connected in a
name?
certain way. Okay, so
Okay.
I started the summer of 1982, right out of high school at VOF. I was at VOF, and
Hmm.
I said, "Oh, I want to do this. I love music." And that was a great summer. I mean, I did music shows. We belonged to record pools. We spun at parties, and even had a love and relationship show, which the general manager, we just went on the air one night, and she was ticked off, and I thought I was going to get thrown off the station. But anyways, I went to NYU down in New York City for my freshman year in college, and then you know progressed. I lived in Taiwan, actually, Taipei,
Hmm.
Taiwan. Worked there for 3 years, and I was doing studio work. I was the editor for English textbooks, and we would record the audio. But
Hmm.
as far as VOF, I returned in 1991, and it was older studios, the same studios as 82. We eventually moved to more modern studios.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was 1991. And as far as the Upper Room, there is a Mahalia Jackson tie-in, but you wouldn't think it's the way. It's from Prince Emancipation album. He had a song called "Sex in the Summer." Okay,
Mm.
and a line of it said, "Listening to Mahalia's greatest in the upper room."
Mm.
So I just said, "Oh, let me." That sounds kind of cool. And I just said the upper room with Joe Kelley. And I looked into Mahalia Jackson, and yeah, that was it. And
Yeah.
Prince didn't have a problem with it. So
Well, he couldn't.
right,
It was her song, actually. He was just
yeah,
referencing
yeah,
it.
right, yeah. And she was a legend too. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. But now, are you a musician yourself? Because what was your tie into music? You played
um,
anything?
well, my mom was a singer, and she grew up musical family. Her father actually had a radio show in Boston, a
Mm.
Lithuanian radio show. He was an editor for the newspaper, and he did a weekly show. But
Wow.
as far as music, I know one song I could play on the piano, "When the Saints Go Marching In,"
Uh-huh.
and I always make the joke I can play a 20-minute version of it. So that's the extent of my musicianship. Oh well.
So so how long you were actually DJing though before you actually started at a station? You had to be doing something in high school, junior high, that was like calling you to this, because you're such a great
Right, right.
interviewer, number one,
Oh,
but
thanks,
your
thanks.
love for music and how you put things together, number two, is a beautiful mix. So how did that develop? Was it because of your mom's background in music?
Yeah, there was always music in the house, and you know, I mean, back then vinyl. I used to buy vinyl and Columbia Record Club, and
Oh my.
I started. I loved Elton John's music, and I'll tell this quick story.
Go
And
for
I
it.
did apologize to my mom in later years, and she had a good laugh about it. But I was such a big fan, I actually stole $20 out of her pocketbook to buy Elton John fan magazines and mirrored sunglasses. I told her years later, she goes, I didn't remember that. So, but yeah, graduating to, like Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
Aerosmith, Kiss. And then my first records, I was big into vinyl and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Kung Fu Fighting, Carl Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
And a record
Mm-hmm.
which really, I think, was influential on me was Enjoy Yourself by the Jacksons.
Oh yeah. Great
Loved that
tune.
record.
Great
And then
tune.
I
Yeah.
just graduated to Soul Train, and every Saturday was watching Soul Train. And I think that was the impetus. Soul Train was a big impetus to get into, the broadcasting field. I couldn't play music.
Yeah.
I just loved the music and wound up here somehow.
So you've always been a natural talker, though, right? I mean, because that's eighty
uh,
percent of it, having the communication skills that you have.
right. I'm actually pretty shy, to be honest with you. It's
Mm.
just like, you know, just fell into for the broadcast and had to flick the switch on. But I always make my wife's not shy. I mean, she's more of a social person,
Mm-hmm.
but she's not shy. But
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I would say I'm shy, but make do with what's happening.
Well, I mean, you do great. I mean, the show is great, and anyone who has not listened to the Upper Room or haven't listened to Musicians Reveal, which I love, there's a similarity between both programs, but I think that in Musicians Reveal, there's a little bit more of an edge on it, and I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just the way that you choreographed it to be. But both shows are absolutely incredible.
Yeah, thanks. The Mixcloud allows me to play music. I mean, I put interviews up there, but I always think to myself, I love to do interviews, but I'm here for the music. We got to get the music out for people. And I was like, I don't want to be a soul to interview people. And I love
Yeah,
music, and when I play music,
yeah,
you get a charge. It lifts me up. But yeah, let
exactly.
me make a quick distinction with the Upper Room with Joe Kelley.
Yeah.
A few years back, I think for like, I had the website Upper Room with Joe Kelley for like 30 days. The, you know, having it registered lapsed,
Yeah.
and someone bought the web name and has that website up as a network of shows. Upper Room with Joe Kelley, they own the name, and they want $3,500 for someone to buy it, but it actually had links to WBOF on it. So yeah, it was kind of messy, and I made the decision. Okay, we're going to rename the show, rebrand it, and I finally found Musicians Reveal. So that's where
Yeah.
it's at. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting, interesting. This place we call the internet. But you
Yeah.
had made a confession, and so I guess I'll make one too, and hear the ire of
Right.
Joe Kelley on this. Right? You had mentioned Columbia Music Club. Okay,
Oh
there's
yeah, yeah.
something in the marketing there wasn't right, and I don't think they realized it until 20 years later. Because there may have been someone in Youngstown, Ohio, who knew a lot of different addresses. Okay, and
Okay.
utilize those different addresses and acquired quite a healthy vinyl and CD collection. If you kind of
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
know what I
So
mean.
show me
So,
the vinyl collection.
oh man, it's over there, and the CD collection is upstairs. But
Right, right.
I still listen to CDs. But what I'm saying is, what what a great, I guess, marketing feature to get people to become music lovers. But when you have real music lovers who have a lot of different addresses, it's not so good for their bottom
Yeah. Do you
line.
remember they would give you like 10 albums
that's
for 1 penny, and then the
that's what I'm
next
saying.
one, yeah, it was going to be like, okay, you got to pay for the full. And my mom, it came in the mail. My mom's like, don't open it, don't open it. And I think it was like
Yeah,
the Eagles or something. I open it, so I guess she
yeah.
had to pay. Yeah,
But here's, well, I guess I'm making a confession,
yeah,
so I want you
yeah.
to understand what happened on the
Right.
front end. Okay,
Yeah.
and so so,
How many addresses?
14,
Wow.
big family, not
Right.
good, just not,
Well,
and
not
here I am.
nowadays. it would have been worse. You could have just gotten more of your friends and stuff like that. Had your own club.
It's true.
Yeah,
That's true. That's true. But
right.
moving on, moving on. I just you confessed something. I needed to confess
That's right.
something. I
Yeah,
felt like
our
I was.
consciences, they're
Yeah.
clear.
I can't let Joe just hang out there by himself. I gotta
That's right. Yeah.
reveal also. But without naming any names, Joe, could you tell us the most challenging interview out of the hundreds you've done? Um, it was the most challenging for you and why? You don't have to drop a name or anything, but
Okay. I actually, I used to bring bands in the studio. I mean, I can't. We do the show out of the home studio now. So I had a band coming in, and a guy um, who we played his music, and it was pretty good. He actually called me in advance, and he said to me on the phone, he said, "I'm going to give you forewarning. You may be getting some calls if when people know of my appearance on your show, and I'm just going to give you an advance warning about there may be some strange calls coming in." And I thought, this is a little weird. What's going on? He never told me what's going on. Came in with a band, and it was pre-recorded, so I gave him like an hour to record the music and hash it out. Well, they must have been hired band who only were doing the gig then, but he wanted a 6 takes on one song,
oh my
and
God.
he actually said, "Okay, can we do one more take?" And I'm patient. I was like, "Okay," His keyboardist said to him, really stern. She said to him, "You can do another take on this song, but listen, I'm going out to my car right now. You don't have a keyboard player." So it was kind of awkward.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much I would say that
Wow.
was a little difficult. Yeah.
That's interesting. I was thinking you would probably say that he was using the interview as a recording session that he didn't have to
He
pay
could have
for.
been. Yeah, he may
You know?
he may have. Yeah, I never thought about that, but that could happen. I mean, some people probably do stuff like that, but yeah, I
Well,
used to love having musicians in. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm thinking like a musician. Like, wow, hey, this guy's going to give us space. He's going to interview us, and then he's going to let us play our music live. We might as well get the tapes. And I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. What is then your most rewarding interview? And obviously, you can drop the name, of course. But as you go back through the history books, man, this was the one. This is why I signed up for this.
That's, I'm gonna say, I mean, there's so many. I don't want to
You
exclude
don't, you don't
people
have to
in
say
the
sound
roster and everything.
doctrine.
I
You
mean,
you don't have to
yeah,
say
Jerry
sound
B coming
doctrine
on.
because
No, I'll say actually, it was the in-house. Bernie Worrell came on the show. This was back in the old studios. I didn't know Bernie, and to be honest, I don't even know how we got affiliated with having Bernie on, but he lived in New Jersey and he came to the studio with his keyboard technician and set up all his keyboards. I mean, in the middle studio, and I was
wow.
piping in into the show. But before that, I think his wife said, "Here's the number to Chris Frantz and Tina Weymouth of the Talking Heads and Tom Tom Club."
Oh
And
my.
Bernie played with the Tom Tom Club. I mean, he was
Yeah.
on tour in the Stop Making Sense tour.
Exactly.
And she said, "Oh, you should call them and invite them on the show." So I was like, all right, nervous. I called Chris France up. Great guy. He's like, "Yeah, sure, we'll come down." They lived actually 10 minutes from the studio in
Oh my
Connecticut.
gosh.
Bernie didn't know this. So I think I only had like an hour, maybe 2 hour show. Bernie comes in the middle of the show. Chris France and Tina Weymouth come in. Surprise Bernie. He's blown away. They reunited.
Oh
And
my.
yeah, we just talked. Bernie and Mystic Bowie, who's another great friend of ours, and helped my wife out with getting into her promotion career. He was there too. But yeah, just these rock and roll Hall of Famers were
Yeah.
just, "Hey, we'd love to come on your show. Thanks for giving us a stage." And I always say my biggest regret in radio was not having Bernie play his keys more than he did. I mean, he played a
Mm.
nice symphonic like Bernie Worrell, but I think because we were talking to everybody, we just got distracted. And but
Man,
yeah, that comes to the top of my mind. Really, really big highlight.
that's an incredible moment right there. And I just got an email day before yesterday that there's a posthumous album coming out called
Yeah, yeah, I heard
Wave.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's going to be on vinyl too. So I'm going to have to save my pennies for that one because my
yeah.
stylist, my record
I
player,
do
is
have
still
one of his
working.
vinyls from the orchestra. Yeah, great stuff. And I'm sure there's so much in the can that they can release one day.
Definitely, this is supposed to have. You mentioned Tom Tom Club, David Byrne,
Yeah,
and Bootsy, of course. George Clinton. So I'm
right.
ready for it, man. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, yeah. I still keep in contact with his wife Judy, and yeah,
Yeah. Well,
just a guy. And yeah, go
are
ahead.
you at liberty to say what Andre Cymone is up to these days? I mean, I don't get out
Yeah,
much, so I
yeah.
don't
I
know what
mean,
Andre is.
you know, I don't keep in contact, back and forth, but I keep up on what he's doing, and
Hmm.
hopefully have him on shortly. I know he's been working on a funk album, and
Oh, really?
so I've seen some clips. You could probably find him on YouTube where he was rehearsing, and a lot of young musicians, but man, they were
Hmm.
killing funk. He's
Yeah.
supposed to be working on a funk album, and he even made a post recently, a 10-year anniversary of his previous CD, and he says,
Hmm.
"Look out for the funk this year." So that's good
Wow.
news. Yeah.
So he's not producing any other artists. I mean, he had the big round robin with Jody Watley at one
Yeah,
point. That
yeah, his
was,
ex-wife, and yes.
yeah.
But I don't know if he's producing other artists, but I saw Jody was doing some shows, and he came out for a few songs and performed, play bass or guitar. I mean, he
Oh,
plays all
cool.
different instruments. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So what got you into Prince? Let's get into the Prince
oh,
chapter of your
you
life.
know, I would think, his second album, the singles, "I Want to Be Your Lover," I was definitely
Yeah.
into. The first album, I really got into, the
Yeah.
Dirty
For
Mind
you.
album.
Well,
Yeah,
for you, but Dirty
For You,
Mind
then
third.
Prince.
Yeah.
Third
And
was
then
Dirty Mind. As far
that's
as
correct.
having a Prince album in my possession was
Yeah.
Dirty Mind, and yeah, from there was every album.
Yeah.
I was hooked. I was
So,
addicted. Still am.
so what? Yeah, I was too. I really, I mean, here's confession time. I really, as a man of faith, I really came
Right,
to a point where I have to make a decision because it was literally idol worship. In the sense that I'm back in high school. In high school, I could defend Prince. And especially with controversy, am I straight, am I gay, whatever,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that whole
right, yeah,
conversation was going on. And then, other things that he was doing. Ronnie talked to Russia. Then, and I'm a staunch Prince. But when someone that would ask me about my faith, I wouldn't really defend it as much or really talk about it. And I thought there's something is wrong with that because I could get very heated over what
right,
you thought
right,
about Prince, especially if you didn't like him. So I had to come to a
yeah,
point where it's gonna be it's gonna be God
right,
first, right? But talking about being obsessed, man, when 1999 came out, I'm a senior in high school, and
mhm.
I skipped 2 days of school just to study that album. I mean that wholeheartedly. At 2 days,
Wow, wow,
the things that he was doing in Lady Cab Driver and
yeah, especially as a
AUTOmatic, and
drummer, man. Yeah,
oh man, it was just really really incredible stuff. And he did have that Pied Piper uh, aura about him in the sense that you would buy an album. Let's just say the album Love Sexy, and again I'm supposed to be asking you the questions, but
go right
I'm
ahead.
telling you
Talk away. I'm always
what
interested what you have to say.
but it's interesting because like Love Sexy was, on the CD it was one long continuous song. And
Right,
when you got into the album, I mean, that was an album that you immediately uh, did not like or did not fall in love with. But over 4 days, you would just be like, okay, man, I can't. This guy is really genius material here. I mean, what
right, right,
what in the world when you think about the different colors and the rhythms that he was throwing together and weaving things in and out, it's like okay, Pied Piper. Because I really didn't think much about the album when I first bought it. I bought it because it needed to be in the collection, but the
right.
more you
Yeah,
play it, it
yeah.
just grows on you.
Yeah, Anastasia. I mean, the Love Sexy tour. That would be, I think, the last song in the first set, then be an
Correct.
intermission. But as far as Love Sexy, I remember reading a review in the Village Voice out of New York, and the reviewer said, "Love Sexy is like an album that someone's playing three different turntables, different songs at the same time. Like it was so complex and."
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure I put on the headphones, you hear different things to his
That's right.
music every time. But that
Yeah.
1999 album, yeah, it was important to me too. I got it this record store in Bridgeport, Connecticut. The
Yeah.
owner's deceased, but Mike Williams, he used to let us. The records would come out on a Tuesday, but he knew we were big Prince fans. He'd say, "Come on down on Monday." He'd take the album out, let you buy it a day in advance.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I could.
Wow.
I don't know if I stayed out of school to listen like you, but
I did.
maybe I did
I
something like
did.
that. Yeah, but that's great. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
just looking
did.
forward to any artist that you're into ahead of time release. That was a cool feeling.
Not yeah, but I don't think any artist really. I mean, big James Brown fan, huge Stevie Wonder fan. There was an artist, God rest his soul, Roger Troutman in Zap, just
Yeah, I love
because I'm an
Roger.
Ohio
Yeah,
guy.
he's out your
And
way.
it's
Yeah,
yeah, and so it was like I had my hardcore artist, my go-to artist, right off the
right,
bat, but Prince was in another realm. He was something that was completely different that you had to continue figuring out. And I thought, really, in the whole plethora of his discography, that Purple Rain was it was the movie that really set it up. But as far as the music was concerned, it was like,
hmm
he had When Doves Cry to really like kind of carry it. But I think he
right,
did the perfect thing right after with Around the World in a Day. It's like, all right, I'm
right,
not going to
right.
rest on my laurels. Like, that's an artist.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Herbie
yeah.
Hancock,
He
he does that a
right.
lot too, because Herbie will
Okay.
change. He's a chameleon, and it's like you
Mhm.
just because you think I'm coming this way doesn't mean 9 months later I'm gonna come through the same door.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think a lot of those artists they put out a great release, but by the time, especially in the old days, by the time they were on tour promoting it, they were all either recorded the next album before they went on
Right.
tour. I know Prince for the Purple Rain tour. I saw several shows, and one of the shows we got tickets. It was behind the stage. I mean, everybody the
Mm.
tickets were sold out everywhere, but the house lights went up. Most of the people left the crowd, but they came back and were performing America. They were doing Paisley Park at maybe, but they did like two or three from around the world in a day on the Purple Rain tour. So we
Wow,
got a taste of that in advance.
that's amazing. Do you remember when you were and what you were doing when you heard the news of his passing?
Yeah, I was actually at Fairfield University where the station is, and I was um, reading Prince. Uh, I get emotional. So
I understand.
yeah,
I,
so
it was
I'll
it was
compose myself.
interesting. Yeah, I understand, man. I'll tell you where I was, and it's almost surreal because I was it was around tax time, and I knew I was going to be late. For my taxes, my accountant was filing an extension, and I was getting all my paperwork together, and I'm in my home office, and I put on my record player, old guy, my vinyl, and I
Yeah,
put on America. Okay,
right,
long, the 12-inch, and just was just having it in the background. Boom, the record went off. I went and I turned it off. I didn't put another on. I didn't flip it over, and I went back to my desk. My cell phone rang. It was my daughter, my oldest daughter, asking me did I
right.
watch the news. I don't have the news on. Well, you need to go see, and she breaks it, and I'm thinking, I just took the record off. I just picked up the stylus and set it down. How incredible is that? you know and
Right.
for the rest of the day, you can't help to be glued. You have 100 questions and different little things are coming in and whatnot. It's just
Right.
really an emotional
Yeah.
moment, and it's
Oh yeah.
amazing how our stars. I
Hmm.
wanted to find another word for that, but how people who you've grown up with their music, how much you think that you know them. You know, I've never met him.
Yeah,
I've
right.
been to a lot of his shows, but through his music, he made that connection and communicated with me
Yeah,
and helped to really frame me as a person, as a musician. Interestingly,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. So sorry, I got distracted. You called me off
No.
guard with that one, but I'll
Yeah.
briefly tell you. I was up at Fairfield U, and
Mm.
I was taking a lunch break, and I went on Prince.org, which it's a fan site where
Sure.
information really popular, and there was somebody posted ambulance at Paisley Park, so people were thinking, and he had that. Now we know it was an overdose before on the flight home from the
Right.
Atlanta show, but this was people were just wondering, well, what happened over there, and shortly, the news came that he had passed away, and yeah, it was a real tough time. Still is for people who love Prince.
Sure.
Um, and I know a lot of people who work with Prince, friends with Prince, and everything. And I really I haven't met anyone who saw the exact demise of what happened to Prince come.
Mm.
They no one was picking up on the signs, I guess.
Wow.
But yeah,
That's pretty amazing.
rest his
And
soul. Yeah,
absolutely. And you have interviewed so many people in the Prince camp. I mean, you know, Morris and everybody, and
no,
everyone
I
sees as
never
a great.
interviewed Morris Day.
You never interviewed Morris? I thought you
Never.
interviewed
Nah.
Morris.
I do
Well,
have a quick funny story about Morris though, because when the time comes to Connecticut or New York, we always hang out with them backstage or last time in the hotel room. But yeah, Morris way back, I think it was a bill with Kelly Price was on the bill. But we were backstage after the show. I said, are you still doing press interviews? He says, if they corral me. And he laughed in the Morris Day voice, and he wrote his phone number on a matchbook.
mm,
Um, so he said, "Call me." Let's do an interview. So I actually called him at his home. He might have been living in Atlanta at the time, and I heard the Morris Day voice. But who answered the phone says he's outside right now. Can he give you a call back? I said who I was. I met him a few days ago. I think he was messing with me when I called. So yeah, and I think I made a joke with them the next time I saw her. I said, "I'm still trying to corral you." So, yeah,
for some
I don't.
for some reason,
Uh,
I thought you had done the interview already.
no,
I'm
no, and I
sorry.
ran the story by a couple people who are in the time, and yeah, they said that would be something he would do.
Amazing.
So, but one day, Morris, we'll have you on the show. I love his music and
Yeah.
the band. I love the time.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. Jellybean Johnson is probably my
Yeah,
favorite member of the time, and
right, great guy.
I
Yeah,
didn't have an opportunity to interview him as of yet, but I
yeah,
would
you should.
love. Well, you have, right?
Oh, several times. Monte,
S-
Moir, Tori, Ruffin, and you know,
s-
Chance
s-
Howard. Well, he's not in the time anymore, but yeah.
But his Jellybean's perspective on everything, seeing everything unfold from that drum kit, and he seemed to be the most silent out of everyone.
Right,
He
right.
wasn't an outspoken person. I would love just to get his perspective on a lot of different
Oh
um,
yeah. I'm sure he'd
experiences.
love to come on, and he's right now in charge of a museum. Him and his wife are
Mm.
putting together a Minneapolis Sound Museum,
Oh
and it's
wow!
in North Minnie where they grew up, celebrating the Prince, the Minneapolis Sound, but even the artists before that. There's
Yeah.
tons of history with that. Gary Hines from Sounds of Blackness will tell you. I mean, I know you had Gary on the show.
Yes.
Um, so, yeah, Jelly Bean, I'm sure he'd love to have you on.
Oh, that would be great.
I
That would
mean,
be
he'd love to
great.
be on your show. Yeah.
Well, one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. One or
I'd
the
love to
other.
be down there touring the
Eh,
museum.
yeah. And
But
Jelly Bean, he tells it straight up. I mean, I even asked him one time, I said, can you give me the top 5 basketball players in the Prince and Time and the Minneapolis Sound? And he gave me the top 5 players who could play ball. Strange question I asked.
yeah, yeah, but that's good, man. Boy, I'm just trying to go through your roster in my mind, but I'm really enthralled that you have taken the opportunity to be here with me. We need to do this more often,
Yeah, and you got to
at
come
least
back on the
twice a
show because I
year.
know
You
you're
know,
doing great. You're doing great stuff, and I want to thank you for inviting me to the Entree Musician when you're talking about the new sound technology, and that was great. Yeah, you got a lot of great people there.
I'm grateful, just grateful,
Yeah,
loving life, man. Able to do, and live the life that I imagine that I could live. I mean, I'm on this journey. There are other
right.
areas to conquer, other roads to go down. But just to, like I said before, man, and I told you this on the phone, man, my nose is brown enough. I don't have to say anything I don't mean.
Yeah, right.
I don't have to kiss any butt or anything like that, But really, what you meant to that early sound doctrine journey when we just put our foot on the street to say, okay, we're going to do this music for real now. It's no longer going to be a hobby. Time's out for playing the high school gyms. Let's
Right.
make a CD and do it. There are guys like Joe Kelley's out there who's going to take you serious and say, hey, come on in, and you treated us
Right.
very professional and you told us things about our music that we needed to hear, very positive, very encouraging. And I'll never, ever,
Yeah.
ever forget it.
Yeah. I mean,
Never.
I always appreciate you support our show, and you're positive. You play all different sounds, jazz, funk, R&B, and even a
Yeah.
little classical twists. You hear different
Yeah.
things in your music.
Yeah.
You mentioned about I was I've even had Grammy Award winners come on the show. They're in the studio.
Yeah.
The interview finished, play a track. They said, we're talking. They said, oh, do you mind? We want to go sit in our car and listen to the song in our car. They're so thrilled. Their music to this day. I mean, they got Grammy trophies in their case,
Yeah,
but
man.
they're like, I love to hear it on the stereo in my
Yeah.
car. So that's cool.
The car is a great sanctuary, man, especially when you're trying to balance a mix. You wanna
Yeah,
be-
yeah, that's right. Yeah, you got a lot of tasks mixing stuff. And hey, I wanted to ask you this because I
Sure.
know drums are your primary instrument, I believe.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it is.
playing gigs as a drummer, I always
Mhm.
thought you guys had the worst of it with the gig. The gear and setting up, and how tough is that? And after a gig, are you totally wiped out?
No, no,
No.
I'm energized after a
Okay.
gig. Yeah, yeah. I never looked at it like, oh my God, I have the hardest job. I'm usually first one to arrive at a venue, and the
Okay.
last one to leave. And it's not because the drudgery of taking down my kit. I really do like meeting those who have come out to the gig and whatever, signing autographs, taking pictures, whatever
Right.
that is, just to engage with them and make sure that I'm establishing real true friendships and not just like, oh, thanks for coming to the show, see you later, and I'm in my van. No, I
Right.
love it.
Yeah.
With respect to being at the gig early, you have to be there early because you're the drummer. You have the most to set up, unless
Yeah.
they've provided backline and I can just walk in with my cymbals, my pedal, and my stick, which are
Right.
very good
Right.
gigs too.
You're
Um,
right.
but I never consider it drudgery, me
Okay.
personally.
Cool. Yeah, I always tell the drummer when we had bands in the studio, I'm sorry you got the worst take of it because I got to ask you to play soft because I mean, well, and it's almost like Max Roach playing with the brushes because I had Jeff Lee Johnson, the guitarist. He was phenomenal genius. He passed away a few years ago, and he came in with this trio.
Mm.
And I said, "Do you want to do sound check?" I mean, Michael Bland has played in their
Oh,
trio with Jeff
mm.
Lee and Sonny T. And I said, "Jeff, he came up from Philly." I said, "Do you want to do some sound check?" He said, "Oh, let's just plug and play." So he had a bassist, he played guitar, and the drummer. Well, the drummer, great guy, Teddy Thomas. He's since passed. He passed around
Mm.
from COVID. Um,
Wow.
he actually got a spotlight. The drums were the loudest thing in a particular song we're playing because we couldn't do the sound check, and they just started rolling, and it was too late to get it set up.
To get it
So they
right.
always make the joke, yeah, Teddy got the spotlight that day. And then he had to hustle down. He played drums for the Emerald Lagasse show, so he was in a
Wow.
rush to get down. So yeah,
Well, have you met any drummers who, when once you've said that to them, said this is drudgery to me? I would be curious to know that.
No, not really.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
didn't think
nobody
so.
said, "Yeah, why are you?" Well, no, come on, I'm playing my
Yeah,
level. I had a hardcore rock band out in New York City, and yeah, they played loud and energetic, and it was, maybe not the best recording, but the
there
energy
was
was
their
there.
chemistry though. Their
Yeah,
chemistry.
yeah.
It's interesting because when I was very, very little in my formative years and just starting to play drums, and I played in a Methodist church, which first and
Okay.
foremost, Methodist churches don't have drums. It's just piano and organ. Forget about it.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
let's not do anything else, right? That's when you get into Pentecostal or Baptist or whatever, then
Right.
it's a little more energetic. But I played at a church called Price Memorial. And the reason why I'm laughing is because uh, I didn't know it at the time. My wife, who, we've been married about 30 years, but her uncle and her mother were the quote unquote haters of the drummer. I would tease my mother in law that, you tried to get me out of the church and I got your daughter. That's why I'm
Right.
laughing. But I'm telling you, in order, it was a milestone to get a drum set in that church, Price Memorial AME Zion Church, and I played literally like this. So in recording sessions or any other places where, oh, the sound might have been a problem, no problem. I put my Price Memorial hat on and I played very delicately. Because other than that, if I actually raise my wrist to hit the snare, actually, it was going to be like he's done for. So I couldn't do it. It was
Yeah.
all fingers,
Well, at least you
baby.
could read the signs and you knew, what you had to do. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I got a quick story. We mentioned the church, I'd say right around the time I got into radio. Actually, my girlfriend who I dated for 2 or 3 years, I met her. I was doing a radio show. She called the request line in, and I wound up meeting her. We dated for 2 to 3 years, and I
Wow.
always joke I never get those calls anymore. so, but anyways, she sang in a choir. It was Calvary Baptist Church. Great music and everything. And we went to me and my high school buddy went to see her in concert at the church. So
Mm,
we're there. Me and my buddy are the only white guys in there. It's all black
yeah.
church, and right
Yeah.
in front of the pew, right in front of us, two young kids. As soon as the music started, they stand up on the bench and stare at us the whole concert, just looking at us like, what are these white dudes doing here? And my friend, he's like, I feel, I don't know what, let's go outside for a little bit. But, I laugh about it now. It
That's
was great.
funny. That's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, it's like
But that was,
we've never seen.
yeah.
Yeah, we've never
Yeah.
seen you in here
I guess
before. What
vice
are you doing
versa,
here?
it's like
It's
the way
interesting
race
though.
and
I
cultures.
mean,
Yeah.
they used to say, and I don't know who said the quote initially, sometime in the '60s. They said Sunday morning is the most segregated time in America, or what have you,
Right.
but not
Yeah.
so much anymore. I mean, there,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are
It's changed, I
very
guess. Yeah.
few churches that I see with that type of dichotomy where it's all this or all that. Very
Right.
few, at least in my
Yeah. That was
locale.
82, 83 around there. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
But,
sure.
yeah.
I
The
am.
music was kicking. Yeah.
Yeah, music was kicking. That
Yeah.
was, as the most thing about, church musicians. And you know that from the funk era. I mean,
Right.
90% of those that interviewed in any part of the late 60s or 70s, how did funk get established? Somehow they came out of the church, amazingly.
Right. Yeah, and I'm just thinking quickly about you mentioned James Brown and Stevie Wonder. James Brown, I met backstage. I was DJ at WNAB, and my coworker was MCing the show. They did two
Mm.
shows, so after I filled in on a shift, I came down to Shakespeare Theater in Stratford, Connecticut, and he brought me down. I met James Brown. He had his hair up in curlers, and I met his wife at the time, and I met Wilson Pickett. He was on the bill, and
Wow.
I wish I had appreciated how influential and great of an artist that I do now.
Mm.
Meeting James Brown, seeing him on there, Maceo was there, and um, I remember talking before to his guitarist, and one of the guys, they were smoking a cigarette to the side of the stage before they went on, and James walked by and says, "Put that out."
Mm.
He was tough.
Mm. Wow.
And Stevie Wonder was my first concert, the Hotter Than July tour. Um,
Cymone.
Gil Scott Heron opened up. So yeah,
Cymone.
yeah,
Amazing.
that was
Well,
great. Yeah,
can I ask you a controversial question then, with respect to that?
sure.
We know our age, late 50s, that type of deal.
Hmm.
The music that is coming out now from the musicians and the history that you have, um, the depth and the caliber of music, because you are interviewing a whole different class of musicians than I am. Do
Right.
you still see that there, or has something changed? I'm not asking this from the mindset of a grumpy old man. I'm just
Right.
asking
Right.
because if your first concert is Stevie Wonder, that's
Yeah.
quite a pop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And we took
And
a
then,
gypsy cab. It was a 3 hour show, and we had 3 rows from the top, and everybody there was smoking herb, and we didn't even know
yeah,
what it was. But
yeah.
yeah, we took a gypsy cab home, and but yeah, go ahead. I interrupted your question.
No, the question is, do you still experience the type of depth that we did when we were growing up? I mean, I again, I'm trying not to be that grumpy old man, but there's sometimes where someone will say, "Hey, here's a track from so and so, and this is the new hot, whomever they
Right.
may be," and you listen. And you go, oh, okay, that's cool or whatever. It may have some elements, but to really be kicked in the teeth like we were when we
Yeah.
were kids
Right.
with the Earth, Wind, and Fire, you can't do that to a
Yeah.
kid. You can't give him Chick Corea at 9 years old or Miles
Right.
Davis and then say, this is the new juice. I'm not saying there's no
Yeah.
fire
Right.
out there. I'm not saying that. I'm just asking you from your experience, do
Right.
you still experience the depth
Right.
that you
I
used to?
understand exactly what you're saying, and yeah, I think now I have to work harder to find that depth you're talking about. Like, wow, this person, they got that live performance feel that the real musicians do put on a show and work, and they're
Yeah,
entertaining as well as making great music.
yeah,
So you gotta, for me, I have to search it, or someone sends you a track, you listen to it, and do a little more research. And going out to I don't go out to concerts anywhere near I used to,
the
and I really
yeah.
should, because every time I go see a live show, I come back, and G and I, my wife, we were always like, man, we got to do this more often. It's so uplifting.
Yeah.
But getting back to the current music scene and what's getting pushed out there, it comes up that thoughts and discussion every time, like an award show, the Grammys are on, and
Yeah,
I see performances, even the Super Bowl, some of the
yeah,
performances. I was like, people today settle for so much less than what we grew up on and we dig and we know is high quality,
yeah,
and artists who work their butts off to perfect it and give a show.
yeah,
I mean, I've seen talented artists, and they're just using. I mean, I don't know if they don't have the money to pay the band anymore, but they're going to tracks and lip syncing,
yeah,
but people don't, in my opinion, they don't seem to mind, and it bothers me
yeah,
still when I see that. Yeah.
yeah. Does that make us
So
grumpy old men then? Does that I wonder because
yeah.
I'm a fellow musician, I'm a fellow
Right.
artist, I'm a fellow producer. I understand the mechanics of what it takes to make this happen.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just
You know all.
saying,
Yeah. I mean. Yeah.
you're sitting at your kitchen table at 8 years old, and they're playing. Your older cousins are playing. Keep your head to the sky,
Mhm.
right? They're
Right.
playing Herbie Hancock. They're playing the Commodores before Lionel Richie. I mean, I'm talking about before
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
star came. They're playing,
Right.
real music. You're listening to Marvin Gaye. You're listening to what's going on. And so this is the framework. We just spent 15 minutes talking about Love Sexy and Prince and the
Yeah. Right.
different,
Right.
and you go, okay, there are a couple cats out there that you can kind of pull that through. But for the most, and that includes jazz, is that,
Right.
wow, are we just now phoning it in? And people are going, well, yeah, that's great, that's nice. Or are we really seeing depth? Because with all my heart,
Right. Yeah.
with everything that I want to be a part of, whether you like it or not, it has to have some to it. Grits.
Yeah, you do a great job as far as, specifically the age bracket we're in, like still, putting a spotlight on people who need,
Yeah.
people to know what they're doing or still doing, because I always hate when they say that, oh, they're making a comeback and they don't know that they put two albums out a few years before that.
Sure.
I guess as far as like, getting back to the current generation and stuff like that. Yeah, I still get a charge on music, but it's I very seldom listen to in my car to commercial radio. Um, I have to find out program if I find a program of new, and they play new music that's really giving me a charge. I've got to take specific note. I got
Mm-hmm.
to listen to it this day or when it's archived if they archive their music and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
tougher. Yeah,
I would love for you to just send me a link. Once you find something that is just electricity, just go, yo, Jerry, check
yeah,
this out. Because
yeah, and vice versa. I mean, hey,
I don't want to
I
come
think
off too. So if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this podcast, I don't want to come off, it's like, oh, this is all junk. No, no, there's a little bit of fire, but I'm talking about if you could just venture back into 1972 through 1968 through 1988 or so, that span of
right, right,
time where it was a lot of experimentation. We'll go back into Frank Zappa, George Duke.
right.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's like, what is this stuff? This was
yeah,
solid gold. Bootsy Collins, for crying
yeah,
out loud. Okay,
yeah.
all right,
And you
enough.
mentioned those years. That I think that's the most for me. I'd say 79 to 88, as far as my musical, and I gravitate to a lot of times to the sounds from that era. That really the
Hmm.
artists and sound and genres from that. I think that's the most influential to me. Probably for a lot
Hmm.
of people, like their late teen years and early 20s, and you know.
Well, I had older cousins, so I had to start like, I'm thinking like 72 when I'm
Oh, okay,
conscious of,
right,
Papa's got a brand new bag. What the heck is that? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Or,
right, right,
or Boogie On Reggae Woman. I'm a
yeah.
kid. I'm
Wow.
little. Wait a minute. What is he doing on that piano? And he's killing. If you go back and listen to
Right.
that harmonica solo,
Wow. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm a little
you're
kid.
blessed. Yeah, yeah. I
Aretha
was the oldest
Franklin.
cousin. Yeah,
Oh,
right.
you were the oldest cousin. I see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had older cousins who were like, "Yo, you want to play drums?" And I was beating my on my birthday just recently. I was talking to
Right,
my oldest cousin, and
hmm,
what I would do is I would beat on grandma's furniture, the coffee
right,
table, or the kitchen chair, and he was reminding me. I remember, and then Grandpa bought you that drum set and whatnot. But I would be, and they would be playing all of this phenomenal music,
right.
phenomenal stuff. And it's like, okay, that was like natural to me. So obviously now I'm looking for those things that are just like that would pull you in and
Yeah.
trying to create them as well as a musician.
But I'm sure with your
You know.
network, you I mean, I went to the one seminar you had recently, Entre Musician. I mean, you had
Yeah.
blues artists, you had like pop artists, and all
Yeah.
different ages. But yeah, I mean,
But
you've
real
got a great
juice though.
network.
Juice, juice,
Yeah, yeah,
juice. You know what I
juice.
mean?
Yeah, the depth. Yeah, right, right. And
That's
yeah, I mean, it's great that you do that for people. And you had
yeah.
Chris Jasper on the show, and I remember, I think I gave Chris Jasper a Sound Doctrine CD.
Did you? Oh,
Yeah, yeah. When he's
bless
come to
your
the
heart.
studio like 3 or 4 times, and yeah, I remember. Yep.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, he's a jewel, man. Very
Right.
transparent dude. Wonderful spirit, and I'm grateful. I would love to have, conversely, conversation with Ernie Isley,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that that would be
Amazing
like
guitar player,
dynamic.
influenced a lot of people. Yeah. I've
Absolutely.
yet
And
to.
was
I never
influenced
saw
by
the
Jimmy.
eyes. Yeah. Yeah, right. He's a lefty too, right? Is he a
I,
lefty?
I don't think so.
I don't
I
know.
think he's right.
Okay, maybe. Right.
Yeah, I think he's
But
right hand every time I see him in my mind.
right. I haven't seen the Isley Brothers in concert. I never did, but I mean,
Yeah. I never
just Soul
saw them
Train
too.
clips. Yeah.
How about Parliament Funkadelic?
Oh yeah, yeah. I got a
That's
lot
a
of Parliament Funkadelic.
that's the next interview though. Okay, that's the
Okay,
next
yeah.
interview because
But I will
man,
tell you a
there's
quick.
so many.
Can I tell you a quick story about a concert?
Absolutely.
I mean, I won't keep you too long with that.
There you
But
go.
I saw P Funk, George Clinton, P Funk All Stars at a casino, and George actually, I will say that George was supposed to come on the show for an interview. We had it arranged, and he didn't call. And my friend who does a show on Long Island that same night had George scheduled to do an interview. I called him up. I said, John, I don't know if George is going to come on the show. I didn't get a call. He didn't get a call either,
Mm.
but he interviewed George on the phone the next week. So I went to go see a few months later. I went to see P Funk at a casino here in Connecticut, and George after the show was sitting down, and I guess this is when he's in a lot better form now. I mean, his health
Hmm.
and everything, but he was
Sure.
going through some health issues and all the other stuff that goes on in the rock and roll life. But
Right.
he
Right.
was sitting at the end of the show in front of a slot machine. I came up to him. I said, "Oh, yeah, we were supposed to do an interview, and Mother Dub, and I said I just had Larry Graham on, and Larry. As soon as I said Larry Graham, George went like he's like, oh, okay, and he was nice, George. Still haven't had him on. Would love to have him on one day. Um, but P Funk for me, I mean, amazing music. Not just knee deep is just my when I pass away, that's got to
Yeah.
be played at the party.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Absolutely.
I actually went to one P Funk show, and the keyboard is in the middle of the show was underneath the keyboards taking a nap on
Yeah. I can
stage.
believe that. I can believe that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it wasn't Amp Fiddler or Bernie.
It, interestingly, I think maybe Amp just passed away, if I'm not
Yeah, he
mistaken.
did. Yeah, I heard he
Yeah.
got. I didn't even know he was sick, and yeah, I
Yeah.
heard a lot of people were upset. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely incredible musicians, all of them.
right.
In fact, if you have Audible, Audible has a free book, George
Oh,
Clinton
okay.
memoir, and so go ahead and download that because I just
Oh,
listened
okay.
to
I'll
that
check
the
that
other
out.
day. Just absolutely fantastic. Takes you back. They're playing music in between his memoirs, but there were some things that he
Yeah,
revealed. And I have his book, but he didn't talk about some of those things in the book that I
right.
have. So good stuff. We were talking offline, and so maybe we'll end it up with this. But got to
Okay.
give huge shout out to Foley because
Oh yeah, yeah.
Foley is just an incredible musician here in my home state, Ohio, down in the Columbus area. I don't know if he still resides there, but that's where he's from, and so he's really tapped in to the P Funk story. So
Right.
you know,
Yeah, just an amazing. I mean, we talked offline, but he drove all the way from Columbus, performed on my show. It was a 4 hour show. It
mm,
was playing like Miles Davis bootlegs, and he
mm-hmm,
performed with himself, a singer. He played a 12-string acoustic guitar, and the drummer
yeah,
was playing on a hard chair. That's
yeah.
that's it. And he had like Jerry Seinfeld episodes on his laptop. We were watching in between the show, and he drove back the same night.
Yeah,
And a
yeah,
lot of people, especially in Europe, France, people still ask for that show. When are you going to upload the whole interview? I've uploaded some of it, but
man.
yeah, amazing, amazing cat. And hey, one thing I got to say before we go,
Sure.
Ohio. You mentioned, you guys have a distinctive place in music history. I mean, no
Funkiest
doubt,
state
so
in the
many.
union.
Yeah, and you guys are stand up for yourself, and ladies stand up for yourself because I did a short on YouTube about one of the musicians from Minneapolis talked about Minneapolis, which I'm
Mm,
partial to. I love Minneapolis music.
correct.
Said no, Minneapolis has some of the funkiest musicians in the land, and the comments. Yeah, oh yeah, I agree. But there was so many Ohio. Yeah, yeah. But listen, do you have this and this? And I said, okay, I didn't. I wasn't even talking in the thing, but I said I love Ohio music and Dayton
Yeah,
and
man.
Cincinnati and Youngstown. But
That's
yeah,
right.
you guys, you know,
Dayton,
yeah,
man. I'm telling you. Yeah,
right,
funkiest state in the union, without fail.
yeah.
That's just the way
And
it
you
is.
won't let people tell you otherwise.
But I'd like to tell you a real quick Foley story before we go, because we were opening for him. I think it's 2006 down in Columbus. It was his gig. It was Phil the Beat on bass, Keith McKelly sax, Cliff Barnes on keys, and myself. So it's his house, his show, and what he does is he comes up into our set, plugs his bass in, and starts jamming with us. And I'm telling
Oh,
you, you know,
yeah.
I'm on cloud nine, because again, that was gratification, that was encouragement. That's him saying, I mean, for him to do that, that he was
Right.
digging whatever vibe we were on, you know. And then after, you know, the set ends and they're setting up for their show to happen, he says, "You guys have just played with Miles Davis." You know, he makes a statement like that, and we're kind of looking. He says, I want to tell you something that Miles Davis told us when we were jamming with him, was that he had played with Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, all of these great people, and he brought their energy with them. So because you're on the stage with him, then you had an opportunity to play with all these legends. He said, so I'm bringing that energy to you. And I thought, man, that was like fantastic, right? So anyway,
Yeah. I think he was in one of Miles' last bands, right?
he
If not
was
the
the
last, yeah.
last bass player,
Yeah, right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Played the tenor bass, I think it was called.
Oh, okay.
But that same show, that same night, go out to the car, and there is no car. My vehicle, my Sound Doctrine
A
van.
sinking feeling.
Yep, parked in the wrong place. Columbus police towed it. So Foley waits for me. I'm packed. I got all my drums in his car, because he takes me down to the impound lot, waits for me, trading out the drums for me to put it back in the van, and leads me back to the highway to get home. I mean, he didn't have to do that.
Right.
Again,
Yeah.
headliner, legend, but that's the type of spirit that this brother
Yeah.
has. And
Could
so,
have said, "Hey, good luck. See ya."
peace.
But yeah, right. Yeah, that's it. Leave you hanging. But yeah, it seemed like he's a really nice guy. And we talked by email since, but yeah, really great guy. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it needs to be
Absolutely.
heard more.
Yeah.
We need you, Foley.
Yeah, we need you, bro. Come on back out.
Yeah.
I saw him in a video about a year ago with Chris Dave.
Oh, okay.
He's on bass, Chris Dave on drums, and this ridiculous sax player. And the three of them are making so much music on the stage, man. I have to
I
send you
think
that link,
he
man.
sends me clips too once in a while, I think.
Wow.
But not recently, but he sent me similar clips. Yeah.
Well, I tell
Well,
you
I
what,
love that. Yeah.
when you see him, just tell him, yo, Jerry B,
Yeah,
give
I
him
know. Jerry B, got to give your guy a call.
my number's the same. It's been the same.
Right, right. Yeah. So
Well, I love you, Joe, man. I
yeah, I
knew
love you
this was
too,
going to
Jerry.
be a good
And
conversation,
thanks to
man.
invite me on the show. And you got to come by. Maybe we'll do it next month.
Anytime, anytime.
Yeah.
We can
Love
continue
to
this one.
Lori too. Yeah.
Absolutely, and love to G. Man, you be blessed out
Thanks.
here. Have a great, great day. Have a great, great week, man. Rest of your week, bro, for sure.
Yeah, you too. Much love, Jerry.
Much love. I told you you were going to love this conversation. That's the dude right there, Joe Kelley. Check him out on Musicians Reveal, and that's on Mixcloud. You saw the LinkedIn. I'll put all of that information in the show notes. Whenever you get the chance, you want some great interviews with legendary stars. Joe know how to get them onto his platform, so that's one you definitely have to check out. I want you to like, subscribe, and to share this video. Go to theentremusician.com. Let's learn more about all kinds of different things that are going on with wonderful independent artists. My name is Jerry B. I am the Entre Musician, but as I always say, so are you. We'll see you next time.